Every year, more and more Americans fall victim to scams, many of which are targeted at the elderly. However, it is important to remember that anyone can be a victim. There are also ways to protect yourself if you know what to look for. Here with tips on how to avoid falling victim to scams is Karen Szulczewski from the Better Business Bureau of Northwest Florida. Karen, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a new year, new scams come out all the time, and apparently this year is no exception. Before we get into just general good advice, let's talk about what's going on or has been going on over in Santa Rosa County here at the beginning of the year.
Well, like you said, it's a new year, so a new take on scams. It's your traditional phishing scam, using what limited information they have to try and gain more from you in order to steal your identity. But what we're hearing is that somebody is calling seniors over in Santa Rosa County and saying that because it's a new year, they need to be issued new Medicare cards, and so they need to provide additional information, some of it very sensitive, including their Social Security number and their bank account number. But of course, Medicare already has everything they need. They don't need you to provide that again.
Right, and thankfully, a lot of the people did realize right off the bat that something was not right. But I believe Medicare has actually issued a statement. Is that correct?
They have. They have reassured everybody that they don't contact people to get any information like that. Again, they have that information. They don't need to get that from you again. And most of their correspondence, anytime they need an update, that's going to be handled in writing. That's not going to be something they just pick up the phone and call.
Right. I know anybody who has any doubts can always call the 1-800-MEDICARE and initiate the call from their end and be a little bit more confident of who they're speaking
Absolutely.
with.
And that's important. And they are going to want you to take that time. If it's a legitimate Medicare representative, they're going to be glad that you're going to say, let me verify who you actually are. Let me take the time to make that phone call. Let me make sure that this is the correct address to send it to. Because unfortunately, identity theft is a growing crime and they want you to be safe.
We appreciate you working with us in the Santa Rosa Press-Gazette to get those messages out there. You told me something very interesting about caller ID. Share that with our viewers if you don't mind.
Sure. You know, they kind of focused on the fact that a lot of the victims didn't have caller ID and so they couldn't verify who was on the other end. And what we say at BBB is that it doesn't matter if you have caller ID. There is so many ways that people can spoof where that number appears to be coming from. It's very easy, with technology being what it is, to make it appear that that number is actually coming from Medicare, or they could make it say something general like Washington, D.C., or they could just have no number display at all. So don't put all of your faith in what that caller ID says, because it's not necessarily what's actually on the other end of the line.
That's very interesting. Yeah. So everybody needs to watch out. So let's talk about what are the annual scams? What's out there just all the time? And obviously they're doing well or they wouldn't be doing it. So tell us what are the most common kind and kind of what we can do about it.
One of the ones that surprises me that it's still out there is the grandparent scam. Hi Karen, or hi Grandma, this is Karen. I'm in trouble. I'm in Canada. I need you to wire some money so I don't go to jail. Or my car broke down while I was on spring break. Wire money, please don't tell Mom and Dad. And so they're preying on grandparents who maybe don't hear very well and don't recognize that the voice may not be the same. They're preying on that sense of urgency. Obviously, they don't want to see their grandson or granddaughter in jail or have their car impounded or something serious like that. And then, you know, they want to have that nice close relationship where they don't tell the parents that something's wrong. And so all of these things together combine to kind of the perfect scam where you wire that money and you don't know who's on the other end of the line picking it up.
That is a very big dilemma. So what do y'all advise people to do in that case?
Get their name and number, find out how they can contact them, and then pick up the phone. If you know that little Johnny has a cell phone or he's in class, call him. Find out what's really going on. Call the parents. Although a lot of these scams say, please don't tell Mom and Dad, the best thing you can do is pick up the phone and call Mom and Dad and say what's really going on. Every time that we've talked to a senior that's gotten that call, they have called the parents, they have called that grandchild, and they've never been anywhere near where that scam claims that they're from.
Well, and it's all going to come out anyway.
Right.
So, well, tell us just a little bit about why so many people target seniors when they're creating these scams.
They are the most targeted population for scammers, and there's a number of reasons for that. One is just the sheer number of seniors that are available. It's the law of large numbers. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they're a different generation. They're a lot more trusting than maybe you and I are. I say, especially because I work at BBB, I'm a little bit cynical, but this is a generation where a handshake was as good as a word. You didn't need a signed contract, and so people tend to be more trusting whenever there's an authority figure or somebody, a nice fellow who shows up at the door. They don't necessarily think to verify the way that a younger generation would. And then they're just home more. They're retired, they're there to answer the door, they're there to answer the phone, and so it's just, again, the law of large numbers.
A lot of factors. Well, you mentioned someone coming to the door. What are some things we need to remember about when people actually show up at our door?
We're getting into spring, and so we're probably going to see another influx of, the traveling repair people who happen to be in the neighborhood and happen to have leftover supplies that they don't want to take back to the warehouse, and so they're going to offer to do some home repairs on the cheap. And they prey on seniors because they're probably not willing or able to climb up on the roof or climb under the house to check things out. But most of the time what we see happen is one of two things. Either they need to run back to the shop to get some more tools, supplies, go and break whatever, they take your money and you never see them again, or they actually do the work but it's very poor quality, and by the time you realize that, they've already skipped town and move on to the next state.
What about badges, say like when utility companies come out? What can people look for as far as identification that these people might have?
Definitely want to ask for verification before you let them in your house, but also realize that those are very easy to fake as well. And so tell them, close the door, lock the door, tell them you're going to call Gulf Power or ECUA or whoever it is that they claim to be working for, and verify that they have actually sent a service person out to your address.
And most of the time the person is coming based on a request from the homeowner, not just showing up in the neighborhood.
I can't think of any occasion where they would just show up and say, we need to come in your house, without some kind of prior contact being initiated.
Well, you touched on the fact that seniors are at home and there is maybe some generational differences in mindset. I know a lot of people are afraid to admit that they were taken advantage of. What's your advice to those people?
And that's not a generational thing. Nobody wants to admit that they've been scammed. And, that's kind of a little pride thing. But what we have to realize is that as long as nobody reports it, nobody can do anything about it. And that's the big thing that we see at BBB is when people call to check out a company, what they're looking for is the track record. So if we're not getting reports, we can't warn folks. And so it's really important that you come to us. We are a nonprofit, and so our records are private. We are not a government agency. The only time our records are released is if it's by subpoena. So if you come to us and let us know, we can work with you and we can be a little bit more discreet. If it rises to the level of an investigation, then law enforcement is going to get involved. But again, they're working for you, for the victims. They want to help protect you and see if there's any recourse. They're focusing on the bad guy and catching them. Their job and their goal is not to embarrass you as the victim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody's got their own component. Well, before we wrap up, is there just any one real quick piece of advice you would give any senior who's unsure if something is legit or not?
We say start with trust. That's our tagline. If anything sounds fishy, call us. We're here to help.
Great. Thank you, Karen. We appreciate it.